let's look at the next category, which is clubbing. By clubbing, what we're talking about is a more dangerous kind of glassing. Somebody picks up something that has a handle on it. It's not likely to be an actual club. Statistically, again, these things are rare, but it'll be something like a trophy, a larger liquor bottle where you can hold it by the neck. Things like that are more common than actual clubs, but the motion of it will be the same. You need to know about these because they're everywhere. Anything that has a handle that the person can extend his reach makes it more powerful and more dangerous. So let's look at some of the defenses for clubbing. All right, we've been talking about clubbing. The most common clubs in North America are hammers, anything you can hold with one hand. We're going to use an actual club here, but remember, statistically, you're far more likely to be attacked by what you perceive as an innocuous object, like a liquor bottle can be held by the neck and has a lot of weight to it. We talked about looking at which joints were moving fastest in the crosata defense. Let's now take a look at which joints are closer to you and how the angle of the attack changes. This can give us an advantage if we're able to respond early. Now, the reason why your flinch reflex probably isn't going to be a problem in the same way, and that you may have an opportunity to defend yourself earlier, is because of the added length of the weapon. He's now going to have to attack you from further out a lot of the time. And this gives you a longer field of vision. It gives your brain more stimulus and more time to understand what's going on. So you're less likely to have a flinch, either a good one or a bad one. So this may give you a fraction of a second longer to be able to assess the situation. Now, as he winds up to hit you, for this moment, if he winds up high, which he may very well do, you can see that his wrist is the farthest joint away from me, then his elbow, then his shoulder is actually closest to me. So if I don't have to, I shouldn't have to wait until the club is close to me and then try a defense. This is viable, but it's missing an opportunity. So as he winds up, his shoulder is closer to me, and I may be able to defend there. But as he winds up far, again, we want to try to get a hold of that bicep first if we can. That's going to take the steam off it. So when we do this against punches, a lot of the time wrestlers refer to this as the cobra, because it looks a little bit like a snake. What I'm doing is basically a slapping and hooking action, and again, I can go to my overhook. So again, with this extra distance, we have the flinch problem isn't as great, but we have a greater distance, so I need to be thinking about this in the same way as I would with a punch. The difference is I want to extend my reach. So as he winds up, yes, I could cover this the same way as a punch, but I want to try to maximize my reach. So as he winds up, I come in and try to get that cobra right on his bicep and slap down. From here, I overhook the same way and pull it in tight. My priority is to make sure that I've jammed his initial attack, so it's not as dangerous to me, and I take away his capacity to hit me again. Now with a club here, everything's the same. I can do the combat o sotogeri. I could even go to other throws if I know them well enough, but there's another option. As soon as he has this longer thing, whether it's a hammer, whether it's a bottle with a long neck, the idea is the same. There's enough leverage here that I can use the weapon itself to take it out of his hand, and then you can see the situation that this sets up for him. So in the old days, when we did this defense, we would control here, but then we would move to the side in case he was pressuring on us, and then we would step in front and we would do a hip toss. That's the classic way to do a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubbing defense. You know, we started asking ourselves, what the hell for? Number one, like I've talked about several times, throws are skills in themselves that you may or may not be able to have the time to train. And it's a complex thing. When we throw each other in competition, a lot of the time we end up falling with the guy because there's so much weight behind it. So if you want to stay standing, sometimes throwing the guy isn't the best idea if your throws aren't at a really high level. And for most jiu-jitsu people, some schools barely even do throws anymore. So a simpler approach to this is to take this weapon away from him and put it in your own hand. That's a lot simpler and I think a lot more functional approach. It's not hard to do. Now what happens here is he winds up, remember I'm trying to get to that bicep before he has a chance to come forward. Then by slapping down it takes the steam out and helps it bring it right into my armpit. Boom! Now we're in the same clinch situation we are. But once again, his natural reaction 9 times out of 10 is to try to jerk this arm away. So look what happens. As he jerks his arm away, I'm going to put this hand here because I'd like to have inside head control, but I need this space. And as I slide out, I can feel this right through his fingers. Then I've got it in my right hand. If you're a right-handed person, like 90% of us are, this is a great defense. And then I'm in a bargaining position. All right, we looked at trying to get a hold of that arm as early as possible. As he winds up, you can see for that split second that his hand is quite far away from me. So I should use that opportunity to go through the danger zone and use a Cobra Block on his arm. Now remember, I'm not grabbing with his hand, I'm not just knocking it down. I'm trying to use this position here where I dig my forearm or the bone in and slap down. So this takes a lot of steam out of the strike, so even if he hits me, it's not going to be as powerful. But almost as importantly, as he tries to pull away for another stroke, I have to hook his tricep with my hand. And this, as he pulls back, this is what pulls me into my clinch. So once again, I'm set up for my combat also to Gary, or I can slide back and use that leverage stroke. Now, if we are late, that means his hand has got ahead of the other 2 joints. So if this is happening, there's no point trying to block here because it's already going to have hit me. So now we have clubbing attack late. The joint that's closest to me is the wrist. So I'm going to have to block it this way. As he pulls away to give another shot, I'm going to hook it this way instead of at the bicep. Do you see how these blocks are interchangeable? If I'm early, I'm hooking this way at the tricep. If I'm late, I'm hooking this way at the wrist. Remember to grab here near the hand, not behind here. It's hard to reach. And you slide your hand to the end of the lever. And with a hard yank, it can really hurt the guy's wrist. So this is a good, simple disarm. Now, also, in the same way that we did this with the shank, if I'm having problems controlling that arm, I can always switch to here and go to the outside Russian like we talked about. It's not as imperative with a club to get behind the weapon and get on the outside, but it always helps. I'm away from his second hand. I have better throws, better takedowns. It's easier to put weight. I can use the same lock, or I can try to disarm him that way. It's the same principle. If he makes a strong grip, although this is a training club, it's hard to understand because it'll bend. If this was a solid piece of wood, you'd feel that. I don't have as much leverage here, but as soon as I slide to the end, it's going to pop right out. And once again, I've got the club and he doesn't. All right, we looked at 2 versions of defending against the club. An early defense, actually more a middle defense, and a late one. Now here's a give and take drill where we can flow between the 2 and really get the idea of distancing and disarm. With these kind of disarms, it's really a lot of fun and easy to do because we keep returning the weapon to our own right hand. So let's begin with a late response. I have to catch it here. Remember, you gotta try to pull the hand away. Do it slow, but it makes me keep my base and use my shuffle steps, which is really, really important. I go here, I do my disarm. Now if he's close to me as I wind up, he can do an early defense. He wraps the arm under his armpit, he wraps the arm, he twists it out, he puts the weapon back in his hand. Now I do an early defense. I pull it out, but maybe I hit him and he has to go late. Now he has to disarm that, and each time we do one of the 2 disarms. And as we get good at this, we can speed it up. And we look at how to play with the different ranges depending on which one of his joints, which part of his arm is closer to me. And that dictates how I defend. As we get better at this, you can then throw in the Russian one. The only difference is you end up with it in your other hand, so you're going to have to switch. Good. Now, Dave's only done this 3 or 4 times before. He's doing pretty well. Imagine if he gets his 1,000 to 3,000 reps down, it'll be pretty functional. See you in the next lesson.